Welcome to Blood, Sweat and Tears, podcast number 3. Believe it or not, this is everything to do with milk, and I have got some absolutely amazing guests tonight, and they are going to introduce themselves. Ladies first.
I'm Kelly Seaton, so technically first generation farmer because I wasn't from a farming background and married my husband and fell in love with it for my sins. So we're dairy farming on the Shropshire-Cheshire border.
Come on, Jack.
Yeah, so Jack Allwood, got a family dairy farm in Cheshire, milking 1,000 cows now. And then I've also got my own business called MOOTRITION, which is vended milk, and we're expanding that as we go along as well.
Come on, the two big balls should be put.
It's obvious it's Diarmaid next, going in order.
Right, I'm Diarmaid McColgain, founder of Concept Dairy. Grandparents were dairy farmers. We set up a milk pricing platform that gives farmers price transparency, and we are currently really focusing on telling people how much dairy's in their product and how much the farmer's actually getting.
I'm Wright, also known as Farm Theory, also a dairy farmer, and I make videos every so often.
Short and sweet. Okay, so first question to everybody. What the hell's happened to the milk prices? Why are we in such a slump and everybody's, really struggling to even catch the cost of production? Andrew, go to you first.
Me? Well, it's the classic. It has never changed. It is supply and demand. And at the minute, there is 35 million extra litres of milk in the world every day. And because there's such a small volume traded, like 7 or 8% of global milk production is actually what's traded across oceans. If you have even a 2% increase, that really, really hurts markets. So that's the, I suppose, traditional answer as to why the milk price is collapsing. And it's probably going to be quite a while before that corrects, because as of October, it looks like it's going to keep increasing. So not great.
Kelly?
Yeah, as Andrew said, the classic overproduction, but there's been lots of cumulative effects that have caused that. An increase in the uptake of sex semen is what's often led to the blame. Milk to feed price ratio was pretty advantageous at the back end of last year. So a lot of farmers that maybe didn't have enough grass or forage about, it was quite advantageous for them to feed the concentrates, which ultimately produce more milk. So sadly, we are, as always, our own worst enemy, but you have to make hay while the sun shines, or milk while the price is right, as the case may be.
Yeah, from what I know, from less experience than all of you lot, it's just the classic that I've always seen. I mean, let's not forget that the milk price also was at the highest it's ever been previously. I'm not saying that that's a way at one of the reasons it's dropped, but there's always a correction, like we say, with overproduction. And typically, not blaming them, but typically as the spring and the autumn calvers go in, obviously there's more milk coming into the market all the time. And I think there's obviously various changes with the different political landscapes across a few countries that is definitely affecting a high portion of markets as well.
So, the reasons milk prices are low is because processors can pay farmers whatever they want. That's it. This time last year, farmers could have locked out 42p a litre. That was there. That's where the market was. All the processors, they're not managing the price risk. They saw the volumes coming up. They weren't selling forward because they don't have to.
I want to ask something, that's really been bugging me. So I couldn't tell you how many farmers sending me videos. Okay, so as you know, I've got quite a big social media following. So I get quite a few farmers that will contact me and to say, do you know what? I've had to pour my milk down the drain today. And this is not one. This is not two. These are in their massive numbers, which has scared me really, because I'm thinking there must be something they could do with that milk. Now, the thing that's really got to me is every single farmer has said, please don't mention my name. Please keep it anonymous. I have never ever thought that so many dairy farmers are absolutely shit scared of their processors, and I mean shit scared. I mean, these people are scared of losing their businesses and scared of losing the contract with the supermarket or whoever they were. It's just a draconian way to be in business. I think it's so scary that these processors and supermarkets have people so tied up that they shit themselves if their name's even mentioned around that milk being poured down that drain. What's your thoughts on that?
Can I come in
Well,
there? Sorry.
Yeah, Kelly, you go first.
So, who knew you were all such gentlemen? My first experience in the industry was during the milk price protesting. My husband actually cancelled our first date to go milk price protesting, and I still married him. Later on, so probably 2014, they were protesting again, and a big processor said, if you are caught outside us and you are on an aligned contract, so it's a supermarket contract, you will lose your contract. So this is very much a hangover of treatment from past, but I have also been told that there was 55 farms in my area that did not have their milk collected from Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve. They just said, we're not picking it up. That's 55 farms. It's absolutely obscene.
I will say I can understand why they didn't collect the milk. Now it's controversial, right? But I get why they didn't, because if you have too much milk, and traditionally a lot of the processors will close down processing capacity over Christmas to do maintenance and stuff, it's potentially better just to not lift it rather than trying to sell it for like 9p into like an AD plant or trying to shift it somewhere else. So I can sympathise with the processor in a way because the farmers all got paid. So, I don't think it's as bad maybe as some people thought, but I do get that the farmers it wouldn't be a nice experience to dump your milk. I understand that.
Yeah, but for God's sake, we've got to look into the concept of how we're saving the planet. We want to be green.
Yeah, but
we don't
at
want
the same
to.
time,
Listen, we have to have the capacity to make sure that anything that's produced can go into the food chain. If they're drying it, if they're powdering it, there's ways and means of putting it into cheese, whatever. I just fucking hate that ideology of pouring that milk, mate.
The option which no farmer wants to address is that if you have too much milk, you probably need to control supply. I mean, it makes more sense for every farmer to produce a little bit less rather than just producing whatever milk you can, sticking the stuff into powder and selling it for dirt cheap to some country in Africa. But farmers are very reluctant to go back to the quota system, but you can't have it every way. So it's a tricky one. I'm not defending the processors; they're all scumbags. But I can see the logic.
Let's throw this into the equation then. So we get a little bit of a government subsidy, and we process this milk and we stick it into schools for free. Get children drinking milk. Get it in hospitals. Get it into prisons. Get it all across everything that the governments are procuring. Get this fantastic whole food into these.
But we done that. We done that in the 80s.
I'm going to jump in. I think I'm going to play devil's advocate. We're someone who you probably, like you say, would be worried about what gets said. The reason farmers are scared is because they know the supermarket or the processor that they're with has the ability to rip up their contract tomorrow just because they're annoyed because they have got nowhere else to turn. So, and again, like Andrew, I'm not defending the processors here, but I mean, if I'm being honest, if I was running the processing plant or I was running the supermarket, we need to stop pretending that they're so bothered about promoting milk. So certain processors will be bothered about promoting their own brands. They're not going to promote milk. It's never going to happen. The supermarkets have got zero interest in that happening because it was a prime product, God knows, before I was born. Maybe when the MMB was around, possibly. You had the Carling Cup. Well, it's not even that now. It was the Milk Cup at the time. It's a stop-loss product, and they're never going to change their mind on that. The only way, and as much as I agree with pouring milk away is not a good thing, and we've done some things where we've donated some ice creams to underprivileged kids recently, and we're going to have a problem come February, March, April time where we're going to be getting hit with because we've put in a new parlour, we've obviously expanded a bit more with a few more cows. We're only going to be getting 1p for whatever that expanded milk is on last year, which is massively wrong, which I obviously think. But all the farmers need to stop pretending. Why aren't the supermarket promoting milk? Why isn't the processor promoting milk? They're not going to because they're not interested. And when they invite you to these little meetings to make it seem like they care, they don't care at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's on us. And the only way that's ever going to change is the public. And I've said this to people before. The whole purveyor thing last year, whatever your stance on it is, it doesn't matter. You had people coming out and going, I can't believe the public think it's this, it does this to the milk, or it's in the milk, and all this sort of stuff. It's irrelevant if you think the public are wrong. If the public think that, it's right. And they're the ones that are going to drive sales. So at the end of the day, it's more like people on ourselves to promote the benefits of milk, why people should be having it, making them understand the situation that farmers are in. And they'll be the ones that push the supermarkets into having to promote milk. It's not going to be us, because we haven't got any power in the positions to do so.
I had a meeting with Bouvier. It's very interesting.
Yeah, but Jack, that is a really good way to put it across, because you know what, I love milk. I'll be honest with you, I've always drunk it. We used to milk cows. We only had 25 many years ago. You know, I was brought up on milk straight out of the tank. You couldn't beat it, and you still can't beat it. And I think you're right, but we have got a job to do. We should be promoting it a lot more. We should be pushing it. And, you know, it should be in a lot more products than what it is. Not the shit that they're bringing in from other countries because it's cheaper. We should have bloody dairy milk, and it should have bloody dairy milk in it, in the chocolate. And we should have free milk to schools, and that should be something that we should be promoting. And maybe even the farmers could be giving, you know, a milk at a little bit of a cheaper cost to go into, you know, these kind of systems where you can have it in schools or hospitals or into prisons, whatever. But the government and the farmers could work with the processors to advertise it and push it a little bit harder than what we do already.
Yeah.
So, lads, I'm gonna come in here, and okay, we're all talking about exports, and so we can export the products into Africa, the excess milk. Before I came on here, I was in a supermarket, and I walked down the dairy aisle, and I saw the amount of imports into the UK. Everyone is all obsessed with UK exports. The UK consumer is a premium payer for product. But you've got all the companies coming in. You've got Danone, you've got all the French companies, you've got Sodial bringing Yoplait yogurts, you've got Danone, you've got Lactalis making all the Aeros. All these companies bringing in milk from all over. Irish companies bringing products in, you know, and then all the chocolate comes in. A lot of it gets made in Belgium, in Holland. Totally Chocolonely, for example, big brand. They talk about everything. They're doing great stuff for all the farmers in Africa. What about the dairy farmers? So we spoke to them. They're saying, okay, we don't really care about dairy farmers. We get our milk from Germany. Who cares what's in it? That's the way they get it made by Barry Callebaut. Yeah, we're focusing on the wrong things. And the other piece is this, okay, everyone is blaming the supermarkets. Behind the supermarkets is where the real problem lies. All the food service industries, the restaurants, all the guys that make the ready-made meals, these dark kitchens, the Green Cores, the Bakkavors, the Breaks, the Samworth Brothers, all these companies that nobody knows about, they're the bad guys because they're under the radar. So now, and I'm going to stick up for supermarkets a little bit here, because when we speak to supermarkets about what we're doing, they're actually quite supportive, believe it or not. They want price transparency. They want to pay the farmers a fair price. But if they don't know what price to pay, I'm going to give you one quick example, then I'll shut up. You know, you're a supermarket, you've got a forecourt, and you've got diesel, and the price of diesel is £1.50 a litre. Do you think that supermarket is going to go to BP or Shell and say, I'm only going to give you £1 for your diesel? They'll tell them where to go pretty quickly. So if you're a supermarket and you're trying to buy cheese, no one knows the price of cheese is. It's not publicly available. Anybody on this podcast, watching the podcast, can see the price of oil in their phone straight away. Nobody knows what the price of cheese is. So the supermarket goes to all the processors and figures out what's the lowest price, and then they buy it.
But we can blame the supermarket for some of this.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of it, yeah.
Let's just think now. They devalued, I believe, a fantastic product. You know, they've used milk as a lost leader, and by devaluing that puts a mindset into people's brains that that's only worth what. When you can buy a bottle of Evian water compared to the pint of milk, that shouldn't even be fucking put into the concept. One of my mates is an ex-rugby player, Scott Quinnell, and he did a lot of advertisement for milk over the years, and he still swears by it. You know, he still swears by it as one of the best drinks you can have. You know, after your exercise, we should be pushing that. We should be pushing back. We should be really grabbing the fucking bulls by its horns and giving people, some positivity about milk. It's liquid gold if we think about it. It's got everything in it. And, young people are looking for these, super drinks. If we started to look at what we have right in front of us, I think that's a lot more fucking healthy than your Red Bulls and your Monsters and all that shit these children are taking and all this caffeine.
I agree, and I'll just say one thing and then I'll shut up and let everyone go for however long they like. I do have to question whether the supermarkets want to pay a fair price, because the price disparity in what farmers are getting paid now in comparison to the shop price is greater than it was even 4 or 5 years ago. So when they call it a loss leader, I'm not so sure I believe that it's a loss leader anymore. I think they do make at least some margin on it. Now, they might say it's a loss leader and it's to get people in the shop and it's the classic line.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that for a second. And Gareth, just to touch on that, I've only learned that through working with, I won't say everyone that we work with, but we're working with I've worked with some teams in the Premier League. We've done England women's rugby. We're doing some women's football teams now. We've worked with some teams in the Championship, and it's only speaking to them nutritionists, they've been telling me why it's good, the reason it's good for recovery, and then I know loads more now than I knew about even a product that I've been around my whole life in terms of the benefits of it, and that's what we should be pushing.
So is the problem our industry? Is that the issue? Because it's not, whilst we kind of did say it's up to farmers to promote the product, but there is an entire industry, the entire processing sector, who is selling the product, who kind of should be the ones marketing the product. So why do you think that doesn't happen?
It's in their best interest to market their own brand products. It's not in their interest to promote liquid milk, because at the end of the day, people just see milk as milk. People don't even know it comes from cows. I have people coming to me and they ask me which cow makes the chocolate milk. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you
So it's the commoditization. It's
right. So in my
own
opinion,
label.
The processors, we know they have their own brand products. And like I've said, if I was in their position, I'd do the same. I'm going to promote my products. I don't need to promote the farmer. Once again, the farmer hasn't got anywhere to turn. So no, I'm not really interested in promoting the liquid milk, because I'm going to get that anyway. Because the thing is, if one farmer goes, you know what, I'm going to stick by my models and give up my contract, a farmer with a worse contract than them will just come in and take their contract. And they know that. So
what's the solution for the UK? Let's do the UK. Because I had this discussion last night. What's the solution?
It's only, I think that the problem is, I mean, you know more people than I do, Andrew, in the sort of, and I hate the word influencer, if I'm being honest. The problem is there's too many now, and there needs to be quite a core who are willing to go out of their way to drive it. Now we do it ourselves, and we will continue to do it even more so, because again, I'm benefiting it off selling my own product and promoting that product, just like the processors are doing. But it'll be through us, and it's more through social media. It's definitely more difficult to change the minds of older people, but younger people, and I'm sure Kelly won't mind me saying, I said this to AHDB before, because I had a conversation with them about it. I can't quite remember the astronomical figure they spent on the this and that advert that went on TV, and I just
thought you were about to call Kelly old. Just getting scared for you.
And I just said, like, what are you doing? And it was a lot of their budget. I said, nobody, and even older people don't watch TV adverts. Everyone's watching Netflix. Everyone's making a cup of tea. Or what people do when the advert comes on now is they pull their phone out, they go on Instagram, and they see a sponsored ad for something else for teeth whitening. No one is watching the TV adverts, and it's expensive and outdated. So the way is social media for the most part. And Gareth, I mean, obviously people will complain about your tweets, I'm sure, but you're getting engagement, negative or not. You're getting engagement. So at least you're doing your part to even have that conversation with people, because most press you see on people is always negative. But it's the classic saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I don't believe there is such thing as bad publicity.
So basically, dairy farmers need to become like Just Stop Oil. Really small group of people who get so much media attention for their cause and then it actually changes public opinion.
I think it's important that you have non-farmers promoting the milk with farmers at the same time. The issue is, and farmers won't like me saying this, but I don't really care. There's a lot of people in the industry who are not interested in speaking to the public because they think they hate them. They don't need to be promoting milk. It's, let's say, me and you, Andrew, and then it needs to be someone from a football team, someone from a rugby team, all talking about it. It's an example like that that's way more eye-catching. Even if it's with someone that's not well-liked on social media, it doesn't matter, because the good thing about people who aren't well-liked on social media is the people who like them listen to them, and the people who hate them listen to them as well. So they actually capture more audience than the people who are liked on social media. So that's why I alluded to your point, Gareth.
But you're dead right on one point, Jack. And I think, whatever we do, we need to open these conversations. So the conversations, I believe, when you throw in a grenade, that's what I do. I throw in a grenade and I fuck off. But then I'll come back and have that chat. But you have to throw that grenade to rattle them cages, to open that door, to engage with people, because, you'll get vegans, you'll get people that are against the dairy industry, trying to trash everything and trying to, put a negative spin on it. I think turning that negativity into positivity with the right people is the way to drive it forward. And engagement on social media is massive. Just for one stat for us, over the Christmas period, over December, we had 64 million views just on our Facebook page. That's as many people that live in the UK. Well, there could be a few more if we go to the immigration side of it, but we'll leave that one right there. But what we have to do is we have to engage with these people. And if we can teach the next generation how wholesome and good, milk is, and yogurts and cheeses, and I really do believe you're right. People are moving away from the alcohol, and they want a little bit more of a clean living. And, as an industry, I believe, I don't know what you think, as a farming industry, we have been piss poor at selling ourselves. We've stuck our heads in the sand. We've left the supermarkets. We've left some of these bigger corporations and processors do that for us. Well, do you know what? It's about time we fucking stood up for ourselves and said, yeah, so you know what? We're really good at what we do, and we should promote it. And even if it's not always beneficial for yourself, it could be beneficial for the whole industry, because I don't pull tits, but I'm here supporting you guys, even that you come onto the land near us and fucking pay 10 times what we can afford as beef and sheep farmers. Well, not quite yet now, because
you're making more money than us now. So just you be careful.
What I'm saying to you is we're one industry, and we're not a big industry. So we need to pull together. We need to support each other. And whatever your side of that business is, support the next farmer, support everybody to go forward in a positive way.
Yeah. I think it's going to get really bad. Come next autumn, this time next year, there will be a lot of farms going out of business. There's already some farms who've told they're going to lose their contract in 12 months because of the surplus. So they're basically out of business. And one of the things I think would be really beneficial is to kind of come up with a plan as an industry, rather than just everyone doing their own little thing, and put it out at a timeline where it is like next Christmas, some sort of campaign, something around dairy, something that will actually make an impact. And farmers do pay in a lot of money to hopeless organisations like the Dairy Council here in Northern Ireland or AHDB. And I think, or even Red Tractor, not a great example. And they just don't do the job they're meant to do. So I'd be interested if farmers could also give a bit of pushback on where their funding for their supposed promotion actually ends up, because it doesn't end up helping farmers. It ends up doing nonsense around carbon.
Maybe we should bring back the milk marketing board.
I mean, honestly, everything goes in circles. I can honestly see a world where we end up back having quotas, except not quotas. But that's basically what Miller's done.
The motivations behind all the different. So if you look at all the various processors, well, there's a co-op. The co-op model, Andrew, as you're well familiar with, and we end up having massive layers of bureaucracy, subcommittee for subcommittee for a subcommittee for a subcommittee. Then you get on the actual board, you might get your 30 to 50 grand a year to sit in the board. And I see it all the time. Guys go on the board and they instantly become yes men. They get onto the top, and you know, and to go back to Gareth, the very first point that Gareth made there was farmers are afraid to speak up and be heard and be told if they're being shafted. And see, for us, we can say what we want. So, I'm sure, Angie, you probably had your knuckles wrapped by your processor at a certain point a few times, you know. Yeah. But the thing is, like, but you're part of a co-op at the end of the day. Whereas if you weren't part of a co-op, if you're supplying somebody else, like an international company, okay, there's your 6 months notice, there's your 12 months notice. Oh, there's something wrong with your milk this month. Oh, you know. And farmers individually cannot fight it. Everyone has to unite. It's all about uniting together around one thing. And one of the reasons why we set up Concept Dairy, the key bit that is never addressed is price. And if every farmer united around price and wasn't worried about getting a little bit more than their neighbour, and everyone worked together, there is, I don't know, how many, 160,000 farmers across the UK. And if everyone got together and worked together and protected each other, no one would mess with farmers. But because everyone's in their little silos and everyone's trying to get their special little deal and all this stuff, we create this division. And when you create all this division, the farmers lose and everybody else wins. And this is kind of where we go back to the point of where the consumer going into the shop buying a litre of milk, the consumer doesn't care if they're paying 10p, 20p more.
I'm not sure. They tried that with like farmers' milk. I think it was Asda done it, and it was never a success.
No, but they cheated with that as well. I remember going into Morrison's and thinking, oh, I'll go and buy some milk for farmers, and they held it back. And there's a fundamental issue with supermarkets in their product placement. So if you go into Sainsbury's, they're the worst. As you walk in, the bacon is at that level, you know, that eye level where you're going to grab it. That's the Danish bacon. If you want the British bacon, it's 2 shelves below. You have to bend down, you have to find it. I can't tell you how many times my husband has crawled away in embarrassment when I've pointed out to somebody, oh, you appear to have picked up the wrong bacon. The British stuff's at the bottom. But there is a fundamental issue with product placement, and they did the same with the milk for farmers. They would put a bit out, but not quite enough. And if it wasn't there, you're not going to ask for it. Obviously, I did, and equally embarrassed my husband doing that.
That's very fair. Yeah.
So they try and fudge the figures based on, oh, nobody asked for it, nobody wanted it, just by not presenting it in a way that is acceptable.
They also didn't market it, so like people didn't really understand it.
So the co-op, if you go in there and you've got a members card, they'll drop 20p off the price of the milk for you. I think my proposal would be to give the consumer the option of taking that 20 pence discount or making sure the farmer gets that 20 pence difference. Because I always have a conundrum as myself when I go in and I'm like, if that 20p went to the farmer, then I wouldn't take the discount. But I know it's not going to make any difference to the price that they're paid. So what do you do?
That'd be an interesting statistic to find out, but I don't think it would go our way.
It would. I don't think it'd go very well. And the reason wouldn't be... It'd be better if they would charge the price anyway, and then it gave them a message to say it's 20p has gone to support farmers or whatever. Because the thing is, when it comes up on the screen, do you want even 1 penny off? Everyone's going to click yes. It's like when you go and get your McDonald's, it goes, do you want to donate to some random charity? You've never heard. No one is clicking yes.
No, never.
And like,
forget the children in Africa.
It's like I said, when people are on autopilot, when they go into these places, they completely like forget about farmers and about global warming.
But
they
we
just
also,
got their shopping list. And
but if we ask the public to contribute more, we're kind of letting retailers off the hook.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they've held the price, the margin's there. They just don't want to pay it out. And then also another issue around the pricing and like who people pay. How do you solve the import problem? Because
I'm not saying this would solve the problem, but it just reminded me of the point I wanted to raise before, because Kelly, what you said reminded me of it. The British bacon being at the bottom. Nobody, and I mean nobody, not a single person I know, looks for the red tractor. It is the most pointless logo on food I have seen. And my dad said, well, you're wrong, we'll always buy red tractor. I said, open your fridge now and pull out 10 products. The first 10 products you see, 2 of them in a farmer's fridge have red tractor. Because they don't, no one is thinking about red tractor in the
let me give you a bit of context. Let me give you a bit of context here, okay? Red Tractor was basically set up by the retailers to do audits on farms and to do compliance. And what the retailers done was they took the cost of the compliance and the audits off them and they put it onto processors, which eventually put the cost onto farmers. But to get farmers to go along with it, they came up with this little story that it was going to add value to their product. But that was always just a scam to get farmers on board so that the retailers could do their compliance. And they will openly admit that now. Like Red Tractor, they were never about farmers. They're always set up for the retailer benefit.
And it's always been set up for their own profits. Because
yes,
and let's be honest with each other. We're all businesses. We all want to make a profit. But this is where the big but is for me. So we have fair trade for coffee growers out in wherever, Colombia. We have fair trade for banana growers. We have fair trade for these. And these supermarkets are making sure that these people get a fair trade. Where the fuck is the fair trade for the farmers in the United Kingdom? Because every processor has different contracts. I'm not a milking man, but I've spoken to so many people in the industry. And one guy, who I know pretty well, really good, slick farmer, he was on a contract with a big processor. We've only got a few in the country, we know that. So they sent him an email with the wrong contract. He read the contract. His milk was going in the same tank as the farmer who was on that contract for a supermarket, and he nearly fucking died when he see what he was getting paid for that. And the same milk is going into the same. He's jumping exactly the same hoops, and he was getting a shitload of money less than other farmers. Tell me, is that fucking wrong? Because I think something needs to be done. Something needs to be pushed by government, by an ombudsman. We need some kind of fair trade for the farmers.
So they already tried that.
I've spoken to hundreds of farmers who have said, we just got our contract, and if we didn't sign it, they said they wouldn't come and pick up our milk. Tough shit. And the thing is, the farmers are, back to Gareth's original point, farmers are afraid to challenge it because they have to go to the ombudsman, they have to go through this process, and you have to pay for advisors and all this stuff. And I don't know if any have actually gone through. What we need is a proper audit of all the milk contracts. Open your books, processors. This is the regulation. We're having getting complaints. Farmers are afraid to complain because the repercussions are huge. And that's why we're always banging on about transparent milk prices. Because if you know the price of cheese, what the price of cheese is, and your processor makes cheese, well, you know what your milk price will be. It's an easy formula to calculate. But if you don't know what the price of cheese is, well, you can't calculate your milk price. So you're getting screwed. And that's kind of what happened. It's like having a load of speed cameras on the road.
There's two things that need to happen in that.
You know what I mean? It's just bananas. Go on, Kelly.
There's two things, in my opinion, that need to happen at a governmental level. It's not going to happen under this government. It'll happen under another government. But the one is to sort out the nutritional values, because at the minute, as a government department, any government department that is related to agriculture cannot say that whole milk is better than skimmed or semi-skimmed milk in terms of nutritional value, because the nutritional advice from government is that it's semi-skimmed milk. So at the moment, we've got a problem that in promotion from DEFRA, AHDB, probably the same in Ireland, they cannot say that whole milk is better. And we all know, sat in this virtual room, that it is. The other thing that needs to happen is traceability improvement. We had exactly the same situation when our milk was going on a tanker with supermarket milk. We weren't getting the supermarket price, but it all goes in the same silo. We would not accept that level of untraceability from lamb, pork, or beef if there was a problem, because you just wouldn't. You want that traceability. So why do we accept it in the dairy industry?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like you were touching on before, Diarmaid, whether farmers can band together. The issue is, in my opinion, they've never had to. It's always been, don't get on with your neighbour. It's always been in competition with. It's never competition over who's getting a better price than the neighbour. But if the neighbour's getting a better price, they get annoyed. I think there's definitely. I wouldn't say that there is definitely older farmers that would become aligned with people, but I think that's going to probably come from the next generation, just because there's a lot of people that aren't going to change. And
Yeah.
it's like you said, Kelly. Obviously, we wouldn't allow that amount of untraceability, but it's like I said with the supermarkets and the processors won't promote it unless it's their own product. Same with this government. This government they do not give. They don't care. They could not care less about farmers, and they might give it a bit of lip service, but at the end of the day, it's all lip service. And I think possibly, I see it all the time. I go to certain meetings with other people on contracts or on milk contracts, and they sit there, and then the person from whichever company it might be will say something, and then all the farmers will get annoyed a little bit, and then they'll say something, and then the farmers go, yeah, well, maybe this time. It's never going to be this time. It's just lip service once again. I've sat in them at a younger age, and not once have I ever walked away thinking, we only work with you. Not me, this will be every farmer. They only work with you because they have to. If they had a choice, they probably wouldn't. Because at the end of the day, they might say they're listening and taking stuff on board, but they don't. And I think it's all the data that we provide them now with, all this carbon stuff, and how much the welfare has improved. And I totally agree with that. One of the good things to come out of this is that the standards on farms, due to standards put in place by supermarkets, for instance, have dramatically improved. But the farmers get annoyed that they don't shout about that. Well, they're never going to, because they don't care about the promo of milk. The only other time they will mention it is, for example, if a load of vegans go in and kick off and say it's disgusting, the milk from this supermarket is absolutely atrocious, and then they can go, oh no, look at all these figures that we've got for the last 20 years. That's why I think they do this, and they obviously have their own carbon they have to meet.
But Jack, so do you get paid for carbon reduction on farm?
So
no, you don't. You don't.
No,
You
you don't. You get paid for engaging with your carbon footprint.
You're a trader. I can't believe you give people your carbon data. What are you doing?
we have to. It's not really a choice.
You have to. But this is our industry.
Well, if I'll be transparent with you,
but is this in your milk?
We're on a line contract. So
What's he complaining about?
Well, no, I'm just complaining in general. And when everyone was experiencing the good times, when you're on a line contract, you don't get those highs. It's just more constant. Which
constantly good, right?
We're fortunate that we have that. So we have to give them the carbon data. Now, if I'm being honest with you, the way that, definitely with younger people, the way that the landscape is shifting in terms of how it's going to look politically, I'm not sure carbon's going to be a problem for everybody within the next 10 years, if I'm being honest.
No.
Me and Dad have had conversations about, he said, we might need to do this for carbon. I've just said, just hold off, because I don't think it's going to be a huge problem.
It's the biggest fucking scam ever next year.
One of the interesting actual things I have evidence that's made a difference from Northern Ireland is that the social media piece is very attractive to politicians, because if you have a voice and you have support from people, politicians love to tag along to that. And I've seen Reform doing that in the UK with like the farmer protests and stuff, and they very much aligned themselves with farmers. So another really, I think, really potential tactic which will work really well is aligning farmers and that profile of national identity, like we work the land, generational heritage with a political agenda, because it's pretty obvious the way politics is heading in this country. Thank goodness. Ignore the Trump hat in the background. And that will be really, really useful for farmers, because political party that hopefully will get into office in the next election will actually do some things to support us rather than trying to put us out of business.
Well, you would hope,
and get rid of the carbon stuff.
I would say they're the most likely.
Lads, my background is trading electricity, gas, and oil, all that stuff. You're creating a carbon efficiency on your farm, and you're not getting paid for it. So I was at a conference there 2 years ago. Arla invested 270 million euros in their carbon plan. It was a very back of the envelope calculation, but the cost to produce some emissions was around 432 euros. That was the cost that Arla paid to make those reduction in emissions. So if you're making those emission savings, you're indirectly you're paying that cost.
There's no
you're
money.
Not getting the benefit back.
There's no money. Arla's co-ops, it's all farmers' money.
Pardon?
No consumer is paying for low carbon milk. Danone tried it in France and it failed within a year.
But they're making the claims. They're making the claims
Yeah,
because they've got scope 3.
But there's no one actually paying
Yeah,
money
they-
into the
well,
system
They make
based
the
on
claims.
low carbon.
They make the claims because
Make the claim. It's all just propaganda and nonsense.
They're
The whole net zero thing is just literally built on nothing.
I do have to agree. They're not paying for it. They're just collecting the data so that in case the public might want them to produce.
Okay. You talk
But
about
there is
in
a
a few
problem.
years' time,
so Wales wants to be net zero by 2030. Okay, so we put an FOI into the Welsh government to find out what we are on the carbon level in Wales. Do you know what, boys and girls?
Net negative.
They don't fucking know.
Yeah.
They don't fucking know. They don't know what we are, as in our carbon footprint in Wales or our carbon level is. So how the fuck can we get to carbon zero if we don't know where our baseline is? And this is why I think it's bullshit. This is why I think it's a waste of money and a waste of time for every farmer to be given your carbon credits. And your
It can't
carbon
be allowed to happen. It can't be allowed to happen. In Northern Ireland, they've awarded a contract last week of 3 million to a company to collect carbon data, and it is going to be an absolute battle to death to make sure it doesn't happen, because they want to collect carbon off 26,000 farms under GWP 100, which is totally false science, totally wrong. It can't be allowed to happen. Because if you accept the calculations based on fake science, you're never going to get it changed. And one of the biggest problems is our unions. Thankfully, I am working hard with others to get the Ulster Farmers Union position changed so that they oppose carbon audits and they oppose methane inhibitors. Hopefully that will be through within about a month. But like, you have the NFU in England who meets with Bovier, still supports using methane inhibitors despite everything that happened last year, but they just don't want their members to know they support it. Like, they're just...
You're completely right.
Yeah, but Andrew, to go back. Yeah, but Andrew, sorry to interrupt you, but Andrew, like your CEO of your co-op said, Bovair is part of the solution.
It's just public-facing nonsense. Like, I don't even think he believes that himself. It's just because he's scared of the retailers. Same with everything. Everyone's scared of the retailers, and the retailers are scared of their investors, and their investors have billions and billions invested in green energy projects and alternative meat. Like, if you trace it all back, that's who it ends
all
up with.
about the money.
All about the money. And the farmers are at the very bottom of that food chain, and we just do whatever we're told. But if we had a good union, we might have a chance. With the NFU, see if you're an NFU member and you're watching this, I tell you, you need to get something changed, because they are the biggest problem. They are the biggest problem in this industry.
Why don't we just fucking start a new union?
No, you don't need to. You already have a union. You just need to actually elect decent, sensible people to the positions, because that's what the Ulster Farmers Union, to be fair to them, I have seen such an improvement in the last couple of years, and I hope the same happens in England and Scotland and Wales, because it can make a big difference.
So pretty much everyone who works there, put them all on notice that you're all going to have to be elected into your positions.
Yes.
I wouldn't actually disagree with that whatsoever, because there are a few things that I've spoken to the NFU about, and there's a few things that we don't realise that they've done, but they don't even tell us, and two, again, it's just lip service. The thing is, people will give you lip service as long as they can keep their paycheck at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter. Like, show me the evidence. I don't see any evidence of it ever.
We genuinely do need good people to actually put the effort in.
Jack, there's a film, isn't there? There's a film, Show Me the Money.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be shown the evidence, just show me the money. That's all they want, boys. That's all they want. And I think, we need to be shown the money as well. And I think we're gonna cut it there, because I think we could go on. I had questions on TV and Bovier and everything else, but the first question hasn't stopped since we've started. So I think there'll be a podcast number 2 with you crazy people, because I think you have absolutely nailed it tonight. So I can thank all 4 of you for a fantastic insight into the dairy industry and into what's happening. And hopefully things get better for you guys. We need to pull together. We need to find solutions, and hopefully people will listen and learn from this podcast. It's a little bit different. So get it shared, get it listened, and hopefully it'll make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.